Welcome, folks. I'm Jaby Koay, joined by Achara Kirk.
Yo.
New Rockstars just put out their Loki Episode 5 breakdown, every Easter egg and detail found. Thank you, New Rockstars, for putting out this wonderful video and allowing us to react to it. Very much appreciate it. You guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, bell icon, all notifications, and give this video an upvote so that YouTube knows that we're doing something cool here. All right, here we go.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and this is a breakdown of Loki Episode 5, Journey into Mystery. Of course, a nod to the original comic run that introduced Loki and Thor, fitting for an episode filled with Easter eggs to Marvel Comics, but also enough hatches, Egyptian icons, and smoke monsters to haunt me from the series that got me into this kind of stuff, Lost, which hopefully Loki will do better than with expectation management. And let's break down this episode frame by frame for all the interesting hidden details, because this episode's got a lot of them. Hey, a reminder that you can get our Loki-inspired merch at newrockstarsmerch.com, like this Loki Out of Time
that's
shirt,
clever.
which directly supports us here at New Rockstars.
Like,
we open on the TVA timeline screen with location showing Vormir, the planet that held the Soul Stone Infinity War in Endgame, Seoul, South Korea, Zimbabwe, and Oak Island, Nova Scotia. Maybe a nod to the Oak Island treasure, the theorized Knights Templar treasure believed to be buried on Oak Island that people think might contain the Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant, Shakespearean manuscripts.
For real.
The camera nauseatingly flips upside down and then rotates as the chronomonitor room back wall just dissolves into the Timekeeper elevator doors, which then dissolve into their chamber, where we now reverse the rotation so the frame rotates counterclockwise toward the severed Timekeeper android head. A true journey into mystery, this opening shot is, reflecting how each of these settings have been in their own ways smokescreens for some deeper truth beyond them. Much like how the final shot of this episode is yet another literal smokescreen, peeling back to reveal some other truth beyond, but even that might contain another secret twist that I'll talk about later. But notice how the series keeps focusing on that one central Timekeeper more than the other two, almost as if that android could be a primary one, specifically designed in its creator's image.
Sintel actually pointed that out in the live stream that we did.
Oh yeah?
He mentioned how Kang looks just like one of the Timekeepers, like especially the one in the statue behind what's her face?
Renslayer?
Yeah, Renslayer. Behind Renslayer is the three faces, which is supposed to be the Timekeepers, and he pointed out that one of them looked just like Kang, and I'm like, it's probably just a weird coincidence, but, you know, according to this. If New Rockstar says it, then it must be the truth.
We enter the Void, the TVA's supposed dumping ground. We pass the Lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Now, this void also contains the Pyramids of Giza, another ancient wonder, and with the Hanging Gardens of Babylon showing up in Eternals, that makes 3 out of 7 wonders in the MCU this year. This lighthouse also bookends the lit tower, which maybe is a lighthouse in the final shot, and trailer footage tells us that that setting has a library inside it, perhaps another source of illumination. Next on the left is Doctor Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum. I would not want to live in a reality with those guys pruned from it. Maybe there was some past conflict between the Sorcerer Supreme and the TVA over who really should monitor the multiverse. Now, as we pass Avengers Tower, we realize written on it is not Avengers or A or Stark, but Kang, as in Kang Enterprises, the company Tony Stark sold this tower to in the comics. It's run by Mr. Gryphon, revealed to be Kang the Conqueror, the latest clue that Kang could be our man behind the curtain after all. To the left is another building that, if you look closely at the top of it, is labeled Ken Park 2018, it looks like, suggesting this whole void could be made up of pieces of histories that Kang has conquered, similar to his kingdom of Chronopolis. 2018 would be right after the snap, which could be when Kang Enterprises moved into that tower.
I sort of breaking my head a little bit that Kang is responsible for a lot of this stuff in the human world, but he's also the person behind the Timekeepers.
Well, I mean, that's
supposedly.
A theory, right?
Obviously, like, it's speculation, but it's still a little odd to me that he'd be on both sides of that.
Yeah.
Around on the ledges are these indigo bird things with their spherical heads that hover over their necks. They run on 5 little hot dog feet all over the void. No clue what these are, but this episode was written by Rick and Morty writer Tom Kaufman, who wrote the season 3 Fruipyland Clone Beth episode with a similarly bonkers pocket reality filled with goofy creatures and an immature exile who crowns himself king. And then finally, some answers.
What is this place? Where are we? Who are you? This is the void. That's Goliath. We're his lunch. Come on.
Goliath is a trans-temporal entity from the Marvel Comics who takes the form of this kind of carnivorous smoke. He rivals the time empire of Kang the Conqueror, and Kang uses the entity of Tempest to trap Goliath in eternal battle so that Kang can expand his rule. And it just so happens that Ravonna Renslayer is also part of this 1993 storyline. So I'm wondering if in this case, Kang may be using Goliath as a guard dog as he works behind him to assemble his kingdom. Renslayer explains,
when we prune a branched reality, it's impossible to destroy all its matter. Basically, the branch timeline isn't reset. It's transferred.
To where?
A void at the end of time.
Yeah, Renslayer is appealing to the law of conservation of mass that says matter can neither be destroyed nor created, only transferred. Not that the laws of physics really matter that much on the show. But
no, but that's still cool. It's still cool to use any form of the laws of physics to sort of, you know, make...
Well, it makes sense of it, right?
Yeah, to sort of stitch together...
Yeah, we can grasp that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Even though it's not really adhering to the laws of physics in any other capacity.
Renslayer claims to not know who created the TVA, and based on her later scene with B-15, she truly could be a memory-wiped variant, same as the rest of them. But this being Renslayer, the primary love interest in the comics to Kang, I wonder if she could be a teacher or an admin from that FDR high school that caught the eye of a young Nathaniel Richards, maybe even a teacher that he had a crush on, and once he grew up to be Kang, he went back in time to trap her in this phony temporal law office so that she would catch the bullies and class clowns who threaten his utopia. Back in the Void is a three-masted wooden ship with lifeboats on the deck. This could be the Santa Maria, Columbus's flagship that struck a reef off the coast of present-day Haiti, sunk, and its wreckage was never recovered. They passed this huge flying saucer, another aerial phenomenon that could have just been spotted on Earth and then pruned, and then they passed what looks like Red Skull's spinning rocket from the first Captain America film, which was based on the real-life German Focke-Wulf Trabeflugel fighter plane built during the later years of World War II. And then this row of giant bald head statues partially buried in the ground. It kind of looks like the big head sculpture in Canmore in Alberta, Canada, the home province of that son of a bitch, James Howlett, aka Logan, aka Wolverine. Who'd you think I was gonna say?
Go f yourself.
So these Loki variants are classic Loki, Richard E. Grant dressed in Loki's classic attire from the early comics, boastful Loki, whose clothes look like the Dark Reign era of Loki. He wields a Mjolnir made from a piston and a piece of a train rail. Kid Loki, who carries Loki's Leviathan sword from Norse mythology, and Alligator Loki. And Loki asks them,
But if you thought of using a 10-pad?
Oh, the one thing that could easily get us out of here. Yes! They're all over the place, right, guys?
Fine.
Loki Gator blinks, as gators do side by side, but it plays like an eye roll here. I love it. And they pass a big pile of lunch trays, which must be ones from the TVA cafeteria. Like, rather than cleaning and reusing them, they just prune them all. So wasteful. And you know these are from the TVA because among that pile are also boxes of Boku fruit juice. Hey, by the way, losing your hair can be a bummer. 2 out of 3 guys will experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they're 35. I know guys in my life that are stressed out about that.
That was a nice segue into the ad. I was like, where is this going?
Yeah.
Why is he talking about this? Why are you trying to give us advice in the middle of all this? I know that it's completely unrelated, but it somewhat reminds me of what they talked about in the Harry Potter books with the like Dobby and all of them.
Yeah,
like
with
what
the
their
house
role
elves.
is. Yeah, the house elves. Like they're responsible for all the things that the wizards conjure.
So if you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/newrockstars or click the link in the description to receive 50% off your first order. That's keeps.com/newrockstars. Kid Loki reveals what his Nexus event was.
I killed Thor.
Yikes. Perhaps Kid Loki's Thor died when that trick that Thor mentioned in Ragnarok led him to bleed out.
This one time when we were children, he transformed himself into a snake, and he knows that I love snakes. So I went to pick up the snake to admire it, and he transformed back into himself, and he was like, yeah, it's me. And he stabbed me. We were 8 at the time.
Then there is a giant helmet of the Ant-Man villain Yellow Jacket, last seen with his damaged resizer shrinking him down to nothing, but perhaps still alive somewhere in the quantum realm. This recalls the shocking imagery of Ant-Man's giant corpse strewn across the post-apocalyptic landscape in Old Man Logan. And then, yes, the Thanos copter, one of the goofiest toy-pushing moments from Marvel Comics, with Endgame lightly referencing it when Thanos rotated his sword, now presumably pruned from some alternate timeline, though this could mean some alternate timeline Thanos was pruned here and then maybe consumed by Eliath. There's also a huge warhead, maybe some stolen nuke that, were it not pruned, would have started a global nuclear war. And then they enter this hatch that we get a better look of later with text written on it in Hindi. In the circle, that translates to A, and then the yellow writing on the right, Pravesh Dwar, entry door, and then to the green on the left, Savdahan Vishela, careful, poisonous. So maybe this is a hatch for an Indian nuclear facility.
How did he figure that out?
Interesting. Wow.
How did he figure that out?
I don't know.
Well, okay, well, there's a film actually, for those of you who are interested, where they talk about how India made its first nuclear warhead. It was with John Abraham, I believe, and it was developed underground so as to avoid being spied on by American satellites and whatnot, because America was basically telling India, you can't make nukes.
Yeah.
And India's like, we're going to make nukes. We're just not going to let you see that we're making nukes. That's how they developed it, was doing it all underground. So maybe that's what that's about.
Maybe.
What's that one called again?
Something Pokhran.
Pokhran, that's right.
So maybe this is a hatch for an Indian nuclear facility or their nuclear submarine, the INS Arihant. Then a great floorboard gag sinking down to show us what is buried underneath.
Yeah.
More lunch trays and silverware. A buried Mjolnir.
Yes.
And trying to get to it, a Thor frog in a jar marked
Oh, he's a
365, a nod to
frog.
Throg in Thor comic issue 365. I love how you can hear him grunting as he throws himself against the glass, just like how Thor did in his cell in the first Avengers movie. Their hideout is a customized bowling alley. Looks like circus lanes written on the back wall there. Kid Loki has made a throne out of what looks like a Santa land from a mall. Or did Santa get pruned too? There's a space mission pinball game, and then a Polybius arcade box. This was an urban legend from the Portland area in the 80s and 90s that claimed the government could have rigged games called Polybius for hypnosis and mind control uses. Renslayer and Miss Minutes worked together to try to stall Sylvie.
Find Loki, find the man behind the curtain, and kill him.
Yes, the man behind the curtain, of course, a direct nod to the Wizard of Oz, which this TVA mystery creator is clearly based on.
Yeah.
But the way Miss Minutes picks up these nonverbal cues from Renslayer is just another reason to think something more will be revealed about this character. Back in the bowling alley, they listened to the Mike Flowers Pops cover of Wonderwall, an intentionally hokey cover of that annoyingly sincere song by Oasis, that one asshole at the party in college who brought his guitar Hask to play. They drank Roxy wine. ROXX probably got it from Rock's Cart.
Yes.
Classic Loki and Boastful Loki both have huge chalices, but they gave Loki a small one. Kid Loki sips Hi-C Ecto Cooler. Between them, there's a campfire of charred bowling pins. And beside Alligator Loki is a book, The Mystery and Lore of Monsters by C.J.S. Thompson, a rare 1930s survey of human deformities and monster lore. Alligator Loki calls bullshit on Boastful Loki's tale of defeating Cap and Iron Man getting all the Infinity Stones.
Well, at least my Nexus event wasn't eating the wrong neighbor's cat.
Alligator Loki goes right for his hand, just like how he later Captain Hook's President Loki. And Classic Loki explains how he survived Thanos.
I cast a projection of myself, so real, even the mad Titan believed it. Then hid as inanimate debris.
This is crazy. The writers apparently worked into Classic Loki's backstory a fan theory that channels like ours discussed back in 2018. That during Loki's death scene in Infinity War, a floating piece of debris in the background looked like Loki with his big curved horns, making us think that Loki might have faked his death at the time. A theory that I was forced to apologize for. I just look forward to the 2024 Ghost Rider movie where Mephisto says Agatha's Devils in the Details comeback was a reference to him. Classic Loki says he
Landed on a remote planet and stayed there in isolation, in solitude, for a long time.
Yeah, he says he got lonely and tried to leave and then he got arrested. I wonder if his lonely planet could have been Vormir, referenced earlier this episode, but also back in episode 2, where the screen listed a Nexus event on Vormir in the year 2301, which would have been hundreds of years after that moment with Thanos. But
he brushed past this thing and I just wanted to highlight it. He mentioned how the Alligator Loki basically Captain Hooked the other Loki.
Yes.
That's actually a great comparison, is Captain Hook, because he's a lovable villain. He's a villain that everyone like sort of just, it's like, oh, it's Captain Hook. He's like funny and goofy, but he's a bad guy at the end of the day. Now, Captain Hook never turns good in the story, but I just thought that was an interesting comparison.
But I do have another theory on this guy, just more on him later. They meet a new Loki gang led by President Loki, who's a reference to the 2016 Vote Loki miniseries in which Loki runs for president, pledging that he's not afraid to lie to people. But then there's this other bearded one, who was the same one who was labeled Variant L8914 back in episode 2. Another one has a helmet made of silverware, probably gotten from all those TVA lunch trays. And then another with a helmet with a bike handlebar. Sylvie, who pruned herself earlier, awakens on a school bus and enchants a branch of Eliath, getting a quick vision of what it's guarding. The rock ring suspended at the end of time that I pointed out in trailer footage with a castle and a lit tower. Now this castle does look a bit like a darker version of Neuschwanstein in Germany, which is an inspiration to many fantasy castles. Mobius drives up in a Skinny's pizza car to save her. Notice how the plate number is GRNW1D, so maybe like Grunwald, maybe a nod to Mark Grunwald Greenwald, the Marvel Comics writer of many of these influencing titles, that in the comics, the TVA staff was all designed to look like, specifically Mobius. He actually might have cameoed in the courtroom banner in the show. Behind him is a suspension bridge that looks like a cross between the towers of San Francisco's two major bridges, both Golden Gate Bridge and Oakland Bay Bridge. And then there's also a sign for Wrightville Theater, screening the movie Oswald and the Martian. Now, a different similar town, Wrightsville, Pennsylvania, showed up in an Nexus event in 1832, but this movie might be referring to Mars, a 1930 short animated by Walt Disney for Universal starring Oswald the Rabbit. Mobius drives past the pyramids of Giza and the Sphinx, but notice the Sphinx has not lost its nose.
Oh,
Perhaps
that's
why it
right.
was pruned, because it was supposed to lose it. And yes, a reminder that the pyramids of the Sphinx do show up as trophies in Kang's Chronopolis, if that ends up being the case. But to the right is a structure that before I had thought was Stonehenge, but in this clearer footage, I don't think it's Stonehenge. It has these Greek columns to it. So I don't know, maybe some ancient Greek structure, maybe the White House after it was burned down in 1820. I don't know, I've been going on a historical kick while I'm watching this show. The Loki's all bicker.
You led the wolves to our door.
We prefer snakes to wolves.
I've eaten both. They die just the same.
Snakes and wolves could be nods to Jormungandr, the great snake, and Fenrir, the wolf, or Fenris in the MCU, both of whom are Loki's offspring in Norse mythology. Alligator Loki bites off President Loki's hand, causing him to let out a very long scream if you listen to it all the way through. Classic Loki gets them out of there by conjuring up duplicates of themselves, with duplicate Kid Loki tossing Alligator Loki on one of the others, also known as Thor and Loki's Get Help maneuver.
Get help! Help him! Classic.
The USS Eldridge drops into the void. This was a real-life World War II era ship that was believed to be part of a debunked conspiracy theory.
Okay, so this is something that we actually covered in the live stream. Apparently, they USS Eldridge was able to figure out time travel or something like that.
What?
And then when it was able, I mean, this is conspiracy theory stuff,
Okay.
right? Because it disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle or something.
Gotcha,
And
okay.
like, it's not really clear what happened to it, but it disappeared. And when it reappeared, I watched this a movie about this a long time ago. When it reappeared, the occupants of the ship ended up merging with the ship, and so like it was really grotesque, where you saw like a hand protruding out of the floor and like people like being bonded into parts of the ship and stuff like that. It was pretty awful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Known as the Philadelphia experiment, in which people claimed it was given an invisibility shield and people thought it vanished. The teams regroup at a barber shop where they roast one of those bird creature things. And interestingly, Mobius didn't remember there ever being an alligator Loki. Perhaps another clue that there just could be multiple Mobiuses. Meanwhile, Loki and Sylvie chat outside.
It's cold.
Frost giants aren't supposed to get cold, so Loki must have been conjuring up that blanket just so they could snuggle. Smooth. One of the birds climbs this tank. This is the Chrysler TV-8, a nuclear-powered tank that was designed by Chrysler in the 50s to be deployed against the USSR, but thank God was never actually put into production. But maybe this came from a timeline where this did actually happen, probably with
nuclear-powered
results.
though.
In the distance is the Dark Aster, Ronin's ship from the Guardians of the Galaxy. There also looks like an oil platform. Maybe this is the Deepwater Horizon. So Loki asks Mobius,
"What will you do at the TVA? Burn it to the ground. Thanks for the spark."
a callback to Loki's promise all the way back in the first episode.
I'm gonna burn this place to the ground.
Now, on this landscape, you can see the head of the Living Tribunal. That's the three-headed cosmic judge of all the multiverse. I don't know what timeline its head would have come from, but I do like how Loki and Sylvie stand in front of it as they face Goliath, almost as if they are now on the side of justice in this noble fight.
Oh,
and
nice.
a little later in the scene, there is in the background a crashed helicarrier with a
Whoa!
Hydra logo.
I didn't even
Perhaps this came from
spot
a reality
that.
where
What
Project
is it?
Insight was
I missed it because
successful
you were
and Hydra
shouting.
no
It's a helicarrier. I remember seeing that in Captain America.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of S.H.I.E.L.D.
In the scene, there is in the background a crashed helicarrier with a Hydra logo. Perhaps this
Hydra.
came from a reality where Project Insight was successful and Hydra no longer needed to hide itself.
wow.
Loki waves his flaming sword to try to distract Goliath, but it does not work, making him remember what classic Loki said earlier.
The blades are worthless in the face of a Loki sorcery. They stunt our magical potential.
So Loki realizes he must drop this sword and join Sylvie in her enchantment. But they get some major backup from the old man.
Yes.
Natalie holds Kirk's music is incredible. She actually said she used a 32-voice choir for all the vocals here, and you might have noticed right in this moment, it samples Richard Wagner's Norse-inspired Ride of the Valkyries.
Did you notice the choir in the background?
No, no.
Oh, it was awesome.
I mean, I liked the music though. Like I just wasn't picking out the individual things, you know, like when you're engrossed in the moment, sometimes you just like, you know that you like something and it's rousing and it's causing a feeling, but you haven't like broken down.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I get you. Anytime I'm listening to any kind of classical sound and I hear voices, I always notice that. I noticed it in, like, the first time I really took note of it was in The Phantom Menace, episode 1, Star Wars. And I thought that was so cool when John Williams added that in. And he was uncertain about it, and George Lucas was like, no, it's cool. Let's do that. And then I noticed it again in Furious 7 when Vin Diesel was fighting Jason Statham. I'm like, why is this choir in the background? No, I notice it more than that, those two instances, but I notice it here too, and I'm like, oh, that sounds really cool.
Dun, 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 dun,
yes.
Dun, dun, dun. He casts this epic illusion of Asgard, which at first looks a lot like the Emerald City in the green light there.
Oh, yeah.
But I love its detail down to those statues of warriors past on all the edifices. But the illusion fades and classic Loki gets consumed. Though, notice how he did have some green sorcery glowing in his hands, but then just lets it fade the final second as he laughs with glee, making me wonder if this guy could have pulled an Obi-Wan and let himself get taken here so that he could respawn in a new form. I'm almost there. Because Sylvie and Loki enchant Alioth and open the gate to Beyond the Void, revealing the castle with the lit tower on the rock ring at the end of time. Who will they find there? Well, yes, this series has done a lot to point to Kang the Conqueror, because sure, why else would you include Ravonna Renslayer and Alioth and Kang Enterprises and all these Chronopolis parallels just to completely avoid the upcoming MCU big bad that connects these dots? But hey, we've been led astray before, right? So you could make the case for other possible big bads, like Doctor Doom, maybe an evilist Loki, maybe some version of Miss Minutes, or simply, what if we were to just follow the theme of the man behind the curtain, a Weasley old man, the creator of the Timekeepers in the comics, He Who Remains. And I'll leave you with this, folks. Notice as they approach that castle, a piece of debris floats up. Now, at first I thought this could have been a ship, but even if it is just debris, classic Loki just confirmed that floating debris can sometimes be a Loki in disguise after he fakes his death. Classic Loki, for some reason, passed up Mobius's offer to leave the void, and then he stayed and showed off an insane level of sorcery. Sorcery that he spent who knows how long refining, and then could have faked his death in that moment and then lured these variants to his castle where he reveals himself as He Who Remains, an original Loki who survived and built the Timekeepers and the TVA in order to control the multiverse with this ultimate illusion. Whether or not you believe that, or if you think it's Kang or someone else, you gotta admit, that truly would be a classic Loki move.
Yeah.
Down below with your theories as we head into this finale episode. And another reminder to support this channel by checking out our merch options at newrockstarsmerch.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter.
That's one of the things that Centella and I had explored, is like trying to figure out who might be the man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
The wizard behind the wizard.
Yeah.
And, you know, Loki being the wizard behind the wizard just sort of in a weird way makes sense.
Well, I feel like you've always been arguing that case. Like you've been saying for a while now, like, what if it's just another Loki?
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, like he has to prune all the different versions of himself because
he wants to be the ultimate and only Loki.
The only one with the glorious purpose.
Well, then it begs the question of why he would allow himself into that castle. You know what I'm saying? Like, why would he allow the strongest Lokis in his proximity like that? Rather,
yeah, that's true.
My assumption at this point is that it's probably Kang. They've revealed the actor. Like, this would be a great opportunity to debut him.
Right, but like they've done a bunch of things in the shows, or well, not maybe not a bunch, but like they've taken a different direction than what fans have thought in other shows. Like in WandaVision, I think everyone was like, "Oh, Mephisto's going to be here," and then didn't show up. So it could be possible that they're just trying to mislead.
We don't know why Mephisto didn't show up, because I think that a whole, well, actually I take back whatever I was about to say. I thought that maybe that COVID-19 Corona and all that stuff affected WandaVision. Then I realized no, that was Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
So Maybe.
Who knows? Who knows? I mean, I know that Marvel has their own ideas and plans of how they want to play this out.
And unveil things.
And unveil things. So, like, I'm curious. I love all the theorizing and fantasizing and fantasizing? I guess fantasizing. But, like, yeah, you know, like all the fan theories that are coming up. And I love the way that Eric Voss just breaks this down and really goes into detail. Like, I cannot imagine how, like, they must watch this in slow motion or like zoomed in or whatever, because
well, it's a team of them. There's a team of them at work here.
Yeah, of course, but it's just wild to me, like the level of detail that they're getting from this.
The fact that they were able to pluck out, unless they have an Indian person on their team, the fact that they were able to pluck out the Hindi writing on the cover, the hatch, thank you. That's impressive to me.
Yeah.
Because it's all faded and stuff like that. How are you able to get all that stuff? My brother had told me before this dropped, he's like, there's going to be a lot of Easter eggs in this episode. This is going to be intense.
I mean, it's so, you can tell just from looking at it. And I mean, like, even while watching it, I caught a couple things, right? But I wasn't really
you don't know what it is.
In like analysis mode. Like, I was like, oh, cool, that's a Sphinx. And I completely forgot that, oh yeah, the Sphinx's nose
I was thinking
isn't
about
there
that.
anymore.
I didn't want to say that when we were watching it because I didn't want to look stupid even to you. I was like, oh, because I remember watching in Aladdin when, you know,
the carver guy.
Yeah, he actually accidentally messes up the nose when when Jasmine and Aladdin fly by it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's funny. It's I thought that his nose was supposed to be missing, but it was there, and I'm like, well, maybe I misunderstood something, and I just shut my mouth.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and even the details, like, you know, the frog Thor in the jar and all that, but like, I didn't even realize that was a frog at first because it goes by so quickly and it's moving so quickly that I just thought it was a miniature Thor.
Right.
You know, obviously.
Well, it is miniature Thor, but he's a frog.
But he's also a frog. It's just fascinating to me that they're able to, you know, draw not just the comic book stuff, but also the real world stuff. You know, like, oh, this looks like this building, this castle, or this thing, and I'm like, what? How do you even begin to find that stuff out? But it is so cool, especially all of the stuff, you know, that ties it in with the world of Marvel in the comics and bringing it into the shows and the movies.
Well, I mean, what this is doing is priming everybody for the next thing, which is what if.
Yeah.
We just watched that trailer earlier today. They showed the helicarrier with the Hydra logo on it and showing you like how this, you know, a butterfly effect. You change one thing, everything can change. Yeah. And so, yeah, this is just getting us ready for the next thing as well. You know, what are you betting money on in terms of who's in the castle?
Oh God, you know what? I do not know.
I don't think it's another Loki.
You don't think so?
No,
anymore?
I think that it's either Kang or He Who Remains. They've been talking about He Who Remains for a while now from the trailers of Loki. The one thing that I can count on is the last episode has to be epic.
Yes.
And so that's why I'm more inclined to think that it's probably Kang. Unless episode 5 was like the penultimate, kind of like, you know, Game of Thrones, episode 9 was usually like the epic one, and 10 was like the more calmer episode to prep us for the next season or whatever. Unless that's what's happening with episode 6, which I don't think is the case.
No, because I don't feel like episode 5 really brought the crescendo.
They might have been. That's what I'm trying to say. But I'm anticipating that the real crescendo is coming in episode 6.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And, you know, with Kang and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities that episode 6 is not like an explosive, loud episode with a huge crescendo. I mean, look how they did episode 1. It was more of a quiet episode. It was more of like getting inside Loki's head, breaking him down, showing him his life and all that stuff. Yeah. You know, so it's entirely possible episode 6 is going to go in a completely different direction than what we're expecting.
But if it does go that direction, then I hope that it would be more in line with, oh, we're discovering new things.
Sure.
You know,
well, absolutely.
That it's not just like a blah episode, but that if it's not going to be like crazy epic in terms of action or effects or whatever, then it's just like crazy in terms of we discover something that's like
My anticipation is that what's going to happen is Loki is going to use the magic that was taught to him by the older Loki. And so he's going to stay alive, and he's going to send a version of himself back into the regular timeline. And that's the one that gets killed by Thanos. So he's actually like living in isolation with Sylvie somewhere.
That's interesting, but like, how long can a projection of you live for? Surely it lives off of your magic, and like after a while, it would just
your magic is strong
run
enough.
out.
You're the god of mischief. You're god. I mean, your magic. If your magic is strong enough, you can just keep going like Naruto. Actually, I don't know much about Naruto. I just only watched a little bit of it. I know he can duplicate himself or something, right?
That's true, yeah.
Even Goku could duplicate himself, or some, not Goku, but someone in the Dragon Ball universe was able to duplicate himself. I think the guy with the eye in his head. In going into Black Widow, my anticipation was that it was just a Trojan horse for the new Black Widow, and I think that's we all kind of collectively agreed on that before anyone even watched the film. And so I think with this, it's sort of a Trojan horse for Sylvie to take over as Loki.
I kind of hope not, though.
I
like
too,
her.
but
I like her a lot.
Yeah.
But I still really love Tom Hiddleston as Loki, and I'd like him to stay for as long as he can.
So there's two possibilities. I mean, one is that he lives in isolation on his own, or he lives in isolation with her, and his duplicate self is the one that goes off to try to kill Thanos and fails and dies. I mean, this is all just speculation. You guys, thanks so much for hanging out. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Please do me a favor and give this video an upvote if you could be so kind. Subscribe to New Rockstars as well. Help them get to 3.5 million subscribers. They're currently at 3.08 if you enjoyed their video. And check out our other reactions, reviews, short films, vlogs, and interviews. I'm Jaby Koay. This is
Achara Kirk.
Peace out.